Hey there, and thanks for tuning into episode 136 of the Eyes Free Sports podcast. My name is Greg Lindberg. Here on this episode, we are chatting with a young lady from the great state of Oregon, and this young lady has been involved in a number of adaptive sports for the blind, including adaptive skiing as well as triathlon. So why don't we go ahead now and hit the slopes and get skiing toward episode 136 of the Eyes Free Sports podcast. Okay, so my guest here on this episode of the podcast is Lillian Goodman. And Lillian is an all-around adaptive athlete involved in many different adaptive sports. So we got plenty to chat about here today. Lillian, welcome to Eyes Free Sports.
Hi, Greg. Thanks for having me on the podcast. Honored to be here.
Absolutely. Appreciate your time. I know, like I mentioned here at the top, you're quite an all-around athlete and have done just about everything, like you said before we got started here. So really excited to dive into your resume, your athletic resume.
Sounds good. Looking forward to chatting about it. And yeah, it should be good.
Awesome. All right. So why don't we just start things kind of from the beginning here, as far as where you were born and where you grew up and spent your childhood years.
Yeah, so I was born in Clackamas, Oregon, which is kind of a suburb of the Portland, Oregon area. And kind of born and raised there and have never left. I'm still, in the kind of Portland metro area. I kind of currently live in Hillsboro, Oregon, in the Orenco Station area, which is kind of on the far west side of kind of the Portland metro area. Kind of my childhood, I have retinitis pigmentosa. And I was diagnosed at a very young age, at 7. And my parents noticed kind of my vision loss, from kind of birth. They started noticing it at 2, where they would kind of try and hand me a sippy cup or a cookie or a snack, and, I would completely miss it. And so they thought, I just had, farsighted or nearsighted. And when I was 3, I went to the zoo with some family friends, and she said, look, Lillian, here, there's the tiger. I can't remember if it was the tiger or the lion exhibit that we were at. And I said, I can't see it. And I was wearing glasses at the time.
Hmm.
And so she really, talked to my mom to say, you need to look, further into this. So, that kind of preceded the long road of going to different eye specialists and um, kind of being misdiagnosed because I wasn't doing some of the, traditional kind of milestones as a kid. And so finally, when I was 7, up at Casey Eye Institute, which is a pretty well-known eye clinic here in Portland, I was diagnosed with retinitis pigmentosa, um, kind of through a syndrome called Bardet-Biedl syndrome, which affects many areas of the body. Some people have extra digits, some have liver and heart conditions. A lot
Hmm.
of them have mobility issues, and then vision loss is one of them. So, um, you know, was diagnosed at 7, but didn't find out till I was 10, because my parents, thought 7-year-old's not really going to understand vision loss, so we'll wait while. And even at 10, I really didn't fully understand it. So all that to say, my childhood was very full, and I did a lot of the same stuff as sighted kids, because I really didn't know that I had vision issues.
Sure.
So, and my parents had the philosophy that, like, I was still going to do everything that other kids did, but I was just going to do it differently. So, I grew up, playing on the play structure and, riding a single bike, and, I just had to do it, differently.
Nice. Yeah, I appreciate that
Yeah.
insight. So it sounds like your parents really did push you and encourage you to be active, especially when
Hmm.
it comes to sports and just kind of
Correct.
doing your thing, right? Not letting trying to hold you back.
Yeah, and I would say my, family is very active. That's why I've done a lot of the things that I've done, and had the experiences I've had. And that's kind of how, and we still do connect as a family. We go out and do these, outdoor activities, whether it's skiing or camping or, you know, just walking outdoors. Yeah, I've been really fortunate that way.
Right,
Um,
right. That's awesome to hear.
mhm.
So, as far as your current vision status, how would you kind of describe your current vision?
Yeah, so I'm kind of in between. I'm not really classified as low vision, and I'm not really totally sure. I would say it's kind of the way I describe it is a lot of kind of shapes and blobs and not a lot of detail. So, I'm not able to read, print anymore. I do, all assistive technology, whether that's Braille or, a screen reader. Um, you know, when I was younger, I had enough vision to read regular print and then large print and then, and draw and, kind of bead and all that. And I don't really have the vision to do that anymore. And I've kind of got these, I've got the lack of peripheral related to RP. I've got the night blindness for RP. But then I've also got these kind of weird horseshoe shaped blind spots in my central vision. Um, and kind of what I call kind of shimmering. It's almost like if you looked at a lake surface, how kind of shimmers, what I would imagine, it shimmers kind of on the water's surface. And that's just constantly in my vision. And it gets worse if I'm, stressed or tired. And I also have nystagmus, so my eyes just got kind of same thing. It just, shakes constantly. Um, so yeah, I guess that's kind of I can see certain colors, it depends on that. So yeah, I guess that's kind of an overview of my vision. But I don't really know what my acuity level is and what my, classification per se would be, in that regards, because it's been a while since I've been to the eye doctor. So yeah.
Appreciate your honesty on that.
Yeah.
Yep. So then, in terms of education, were you mainstreamed in school, in K through 12 school?
Yep. Yep. I was mainstreamed. I was pretty stubborn as a kid, and I really wanted to stay in my respective school. I was really the only blind kid in, the different schools I went to, and so because of that, I had a really challenging time, and so a lot of times my parents would say, let's, think about going to the school for the blind. And I don't know, I had this image in my head, like in my mind's eye of like me, walking across the stage, at graduation in high school, with my peers. And that really, drove me. So, um, yeah, I was mainstreamed through high school. And at the time, because I had more usable vision. I was, using a CCTV, started out with this big clunky, monitor that had this camera on an arm thing that, would be plugged into the projector.
Yep.
And so I was enlarging things and I was still writing, whether that was, with, black markers. I'd have things enlarged on yellow paper with, to have that contrast of black on yellow. Um, but then kind of my sophomore year of high school, no, it was more, I would say, kind of my junior into my senior year. It just was getting to the point where I was focusing so much on trying to see things that it just became, a headache. And so I kind of made that decision to kind of switch to, using JAWS and Braille. And so, but I didn't want to take a gap year. I wanted to go and be like everybody else and go directly into college. So I went, I looked into couple different schools. Portland State University was one of them. Linfield College, which is about an hour away, and then University of Portland. And oh, and Pacific University, which is in kind of Forest Grove area, about 30 minutes away. And I decided Portland State because I needed to get the blindness related skills. And so I was going to take classes at the Oregon Commission for the Blind in, adaptive tech and cooking and orientation mobility, but then also take classes at Portland State. So I made my class load pretty light so that I could kind of do both. And that worked. I don't know how I did it because it was a lot, of doing the, PSU work and then doing the, commuting to the commission.
Sure.
My major in college was accounting. I should say business administration, with a concentration in accounting. And that presented a lot of challenges, because a lot of accounting is very visual. It's a lot of graphs and charts and, doing what's called T accounts where you're writing it. It's not a lot of it's not done online. And so it took me about 6 years to graduate. But yeah, I graduated with that degree in 2020, June of 2022.
Nice. I did work for an accounting firm at one point. I mean, doing more so marketing and whatnot, but
Mm-hmm.
can definitely sense the
Yeah,
visual, nature of that field. And kudos to you for
correct.
going for it and getting that done. And as far as your career, any career, experience at this point, internships or jobs that you've had?
Yeah, so I was very fortunate in working closely with the Oregon Commission for the Blind that I did their summer work experience program. Um, and so my first year, I worked at the YMCA in Salem, in a kind of I think it was more of a kindergarten type classroom, so doing different cleaning tasks and working with the kids. Um, my next one was at, oh, now I'm trying to think. I did one at OMSI, and that was really cool. I was initially in this one exhibit that was really kind of challenging because it was in a dark area. I had a difficult time knowing when people were coming up to the booth to kind of do the demonstration.
Hmm.
And so I ended up, they had these kind of brain teaser things outside the exhibit. And I worked with a job coach to learn all the answers. And I would just kind of go around and give people tips and clues. And that was really cool because a lot of the, patrons, would struggle and have, a hard time with it. And then, for me to come up and be like, oh, this is how you do it. They were kind of mind blown.
Right.
Um, and then I was a receptionist at an organization called Independent Living Resources. And so, I did a lot of kind of administrative tasks. Um, Kind of later on, and those were more like kind of 6 weeks um, work experiences. And then kind of later on, I did kind of more, I guess they were still kind of the same length, but one was at New Seasons Market, at one of their store locations. And for people who don't know, it's a local kind of grocery chain here in the Pacific Northwest. And I was worked in the solutions department, so we would, demo different products within the store and hand out samples, and that was fun.
Hmm.
And then kind of related to my field, I did an accounting internship in their kind of support offices. And that was really great. I got, quite a bit of experience in my specific field. Then I graduated in 2022 and started, looking for kind of full-time jobs. And very quickly, I was kind of very surprised how quickly it kind of panned out. But um, I applied for a job on it's kind of like Indeed, but it has a different name, and I can't remember what the name of it is. But for at the Northwest Regional Education Service District, um, which is who I got services through, for my teacher as a visually impaired and orientation mobility in kind of middle school and high school. In their fiscal department in payroll. And so I've been doing that March. Actually, on Monday, it'll be 2.5 years that I've been there. Um, and it's been a good experience. It's been very challenging in the sense that the accounting software that they use is really not accessible at all.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but I've been very impressed with kind of their attitude about it. They've kind of focused on what I can do, and given me, tasks in programs that are accessible, and then with specific payroll processing, I will do the portions that I have access to, and then a coworker will, come in and do um the pieces that are not accessible. And so yeah, it's a lot of kind of tag teaming. And typically in the department we have because we do the payroll for the education service district, and then I think we're down to 9 component districts and do their payroll. And so usually people in the department have 2 to 3 districts that they're doing payroll for. And so I'm kind of more of a floater, and I do kind of bits and pieces and help out where I can. So
Right.
yeah, that's
Interesting.
kind of a long-winded answer to your question, but that's kind of a summary of my work experience.
Yeah, you're good.
Kind of a little bit of everything.
And sure. And yeah, first off, congrats on landing that job, pretty quickly out of school. It sounds like, which is obviously rare for a lot of folks with
Yeah.
disabilities.
Hmm.
And then just the fact your employer has been pretty flexible and willing to help and work with you and
Hmm.
accommodate. That's a great situation. It sounds like you're in.
Yeah, it was yeah, it was graduated in June and was hired in October. So, very quick. And I wasn't thinking that would be the case, but yeah, I've been very fortunate, and glad that they've been willing to work with me, because kind of the accessibility things started from day one. So, you know, they could have had a very different, perspective and attitude. So, yeah, it's been great.
Absolutely. Yeah. So then moving on to adaptive sports. So I'm curious, when were you initially introduced to adaptive sports? When did you kind of become aware of sports for the blind and kind of these adaptive sports out there?
Yeah, so as a kid, and the fact that my family was so active, they kind of put us kids into sports at a young age. So when I was in third grade, I was put into, the local soccer um kind of, team for, younger kids. And at the time I was wearing glasses, I had a hard time seeing, the ball until it was right there. And, it was really confusing for, my dad, who was the coach, and then, other people around me. And so I did that for a couple years. I think I was did that third and fourth grade. And then fifth grade, um, my parents kind of decided to switch gears, and so they put me into the swim team, kind of a local club near us. And I did that from about fifth grade till my junior year of high school, and really didn't use much adaptations. Kind of towards the end, I moved from an outdoor, fully outdoor pool where the only time they would cancel practice is for thunder and lightning storms. So, there was times where there was ice and snow, and it was quite the experience.
Yep.
Um, But I would say the first time I kind of heard about adaptive sports was when I was either seventh or eighth grade, and through the um, Northwest Regional Education Service District, um, we participated in a goalball tournament that I believe was put on by the Northwest Association for Blind Athletes, or, in partnership with another organization. And so that was kind of my first introduction, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, into kind of the adaptive sports world. Um, so I did that. I would participate in the, goalball practices and tournaments, kind of throughout my time in middle school and high school. And then kind of once I graduated high school, through the summer work experience program, we would do activities with, and I'm going to just shorten Northwest Association for Blind Athletes to NWABA, because it's
Sure.
a mouthful. And so I would do pretty much anything, tandem biking, hiking, skiing, snowboarding, I'm forgetting, pretty much I would kind of do really anything that swimming. And so it's just um kind of grown from there. Um, you know, for and I kind of, before we started recording, I, said I kind of pretty much have tried it all. So in college, or I guess back up, I should say, after my junior year of high school, and I was kind of wanting to go more the team sport route. And I
Hmm.
had always, loved being in the water, and, swim team was great, but, even though you were on a team, it was mostly, getting times for yourself, kind of, beating your times. And I had done through the summer work experience program, uh, a dragon boating experience, and I loved it. I thought this is really cool. So I decided to look into it further, and I think it was my senior year that I joined the dragon boat team. It was called Kraken, and it was for kind of high school aged, college age individuals.
Very cool.
Um, and I think I did that for about a year, maybe. And then decided there was a team, and there still is a team called Wasabi VIP, and Wasabi is the kind of the club, um, overarching club, and they are a group that has, I would say about half of the team has varying levels of vision loss, and then half is sighted. And so did that for a couple years. And during college, I tried rowing, and that was tricky for me to kind of get the stroke down, because you're in this moving seat, and you've got this big long oar, and yeah, I never fully got, you know, the handle of that. So, and I would also say from a young age, when I was 10, I don't know how my mom found this, but she found a um, thing through Mount Hood Meadows where called Snow Blasters, and basically it's where we would go up 4 Sundays in January. And when I first started, I had enough vision to be kind of in the group setting, and ski without a guide. But as I progressed and lost more vision, I went to, kind of doing one-on-one sessions, and then, and initially I was having my guide ski in front of me, and that they would wear bright yellow vests so I could follow them. But
Yep.
now it's to the point where it's too difficult. So, they ski behind me, and we have a two-way. Well, when I first started, we didn't have two-way headsets, but within the last 4 or 5 years, I've gotten these headsets, and
Oh, interesting.
it's been a game changer because my guide can be skiing behind me and talk in a normal volume, and I can still hear him or her as we're skiing down. And you know different athletes will do different ways of guiding, and depending on level of vision loss too. I like it where my, guide skis behind me and they're telling me, okay, here's the fault line, describing the terrain, and then I'm doing what's called free skiing and I'm initiating my turns, and then they'll say, okay, hold your turn a little bit more, go more left, go more right. But I
Hmm.
found that I like to get kind of in that rhythm of, skiing down the slope.
Ski for Light, definitely want to ask you about your involvement in Ski for Light. I know you've been involved in that program,
Oh,
I believe, for
yes.
several years now.
Yeah, so this year was year three. I had, have done downhill skiing for I think this year is my 17th season.
Hmm.
And I had a chance to do a ski trip in Breckenridge, Colorado through the United States Association of Blind Athletes. And there we could do downhill skiing, and then we had the opportunity to try cross country skiing. And so I tried it, and I liked it, and thought, wanted to keep doing it. And I have a good friend who lives in Bend, Oregon, and has been doing Ski for Light for many, many years. And so she, always talked about how, great it was, and that I should join. And during college, it just wasn't feasible, just because it's a week-long event, and trying to get that time off at the end of January, it just didn't work. So yeah, in 2023 I went and had a blast, and we were in Granby, Colorado, which is a couple hours outside of Denver, and
Hmm.
at this venue called Snow Mountain Ranch. And oh my gosh, it was a amazing venue where basically I stayed in the one of the lodges, and you could ski out from the lodge. And so
Wow.
that's mostly what we would do. We would ski from the lodge, and most of the time not go to the Nordic Center. We would just hop on the 5K, 10K trails. Um, and so, yeah, kind of how it works is you are paired up. Well, before, kind of around August time, you kind of submit an application saying, your level of skiing, what you'd like to get out for the week, um, your meal preferences, if you have a guide dog, if you, want a room with someone else, what you're looking for in a guide, if you want to ski just kind of more recreationally or more kind of, at the competitive level. And then once they kind of take that into consideration, and then once you arrive, they kind of announce your guide for the week. And then you kind of each day kind of set your goals for the week, and kind of play it by ear each day. And so that first year mostly I was doing, I think we did 5K course one time. And then kind of the rest of the week we were doing the 10K course, and it was in the 30s, sunny every day. And
Oh,
I should say also too, we're skiing in tracks, so side by side. Um, and the guide is, a lot of it you can feel with the tracks, but they'll let you know if we're coming out of the tracks, if we need to, sidestep right or left. We do a lot of the clock face, so they'll say, tips 11 o'clock, tips 9 o'clock. So there's kind of a lot of lingo. And I was very fortunate my first year that they have an award where it's for first timers, and they provide them, it's called the Jan Hog Award, and it's for someone who shows enthusiasm for cross-country skiing.
Hmm.
And they provide them with a package of poles, boots, and skis. And so I was shocked. I just wasn't expecting it. I just kind of showed up and, uh, just kind of did my thing. And,
Wow.
lo and behold, at the end of the banquet, I won it. And so that's kind of allowed me to continue my, journey. And I love Ski for Light. I love, it is basically kind of this big, large family, and they focus, really during the week. I feel like, vision loss is not really, yeah, it's a piece of us, but it's not really focused on during the week. It's kind of, I don't know how to say it, but just kind of not, they focus on what everybody can do and meet people where they are, and everybody's super welcoming and big community. And also too, I've been fortunate to kind of take on leadership roles and kind of be involved. So for the last couple years, I've organized, because yeah, there's the skiing, but there's also the off snow activities, and so I've organized presenters to present on various topics in the evening, and it's been, wide variety of topics.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's kind of a summary. Oh, and I should say too, this year in October, I was uh, selected slash nominated to um, so Ski for Light was modeled after an event called the Ritter Inn, in which is held in Beitostølen in Norway. And they usually send two skiers and two guides. This past year it was the 50th anniversary, so there's four skiers and four guides to go and represent Ski for Light at the event. And so I was selected and nominated to be on the team. So I'm very excited. On March 28th, I leave for Norway, and we'll get to do an additional week long of cross country skiing. So
Wow, that's
yeah, so that's
amazing.
kind of Ski for Light in a nutshell.
Yeah, and congrats on that, and what an honor. That's going to be just the thrill of a
Yeah.
lifetime, I'm sure it sounds
Yeah,
like.
I still can't fully believe it's real, but it is.
Right, right. And just
Uh,
getting to ski,
yeah.
kind of like you said, the birthplace of this program, this organization.
Hmm.
And then
Yes.
Europe, I know Norway's a beautiful, beautiful country. So,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I'm really
wow,
excited. Yeah.
amazing. Yeah. So moving on to triathlon. So I know you've mentioned to me the last couple of years you've gotten into triathlon. I'm curious how that kind of, how you got into it, and just any triathlons or events you'd like to mention.
Yeah. So, I kind of have done all of sports individually throughout my life, and I had always wanted to do a triathlon, but didn't really know how to do it as a, blind athlete. And so kind of through Guide Dogs for the Blind alumni groups, there is an organization called Dare to Try, and the executive director and came out and uh, talked about the organization, and and they have different camps throughout the year. And so I decided, what the heck, why not go and do, a camp? And so August of 2022, I did their or I think it's called Learn to Try camp. And that was cool just to meet a lot of really, cool people who are further along in their, triathlon journey. Some are, people who are, um, just trying it out themselves. Some of them had never swam before, and they were learning how to, kind of do the swim, and learned a lot about kind of how the guiding process works. And in triathlon, there's, the transition piece, which I didn't really, know a whole lot about. And so that was, good to learn. And, after I did my first one, I just got the bug. I love kind of the race, atmosphere. And so since then, I've done, let's see, I've done two duathlons, which is run, bike, run, and then I think I'm up to eight, eight or nine, um, what are called sprint distance triathlons. So they're
Hmm.
about a 700 meter swim, 12 to 13-mile bike, and then a 5K run. And I'm mainly doing, local races, um, in the Portland area, um, which is great. I don't know if there's a specific race, that sticks out to me. Um, I just, yeah, I just love being kind of in the race, um, atmosphere, and everybody's cheering everybody on, um, I am competitive, but I'm also kind of doing it more recreationally, and each year I, improve. And so it's cool to do kind of the same race, from year to year. There's one race, that's called the Hag Lake Triathlon, and it's a pretty difficult course. And I had, done it with a guide the first year. I met him through a swimming event at NWABA and started talking about triathlon, and, asked if he'd be willing to guide, and he said sure. And so our first year, our swim was awful. We were out of sync. I was going too fast. He was going too slow.
Mm.
Um, and so just we both were swallowing water, and we had to stop a lot of times. The water was super choppy. And then, fast forward to last year where, we had done a swim beforehand. We got into the water, started swimming. I should say also too, it's a triangular shaped course, so there's buoys that we have to go around.
Oh, wow.
Um, and so last year we got in the water, we started swimming. All of a sudden he's tapping me on the I think head, or kind of, I think I like more to be tapped on the kind of the back, to let me know, that we're either stopping, to go around the buoy. And then we just were like, all of a sudden we were at the first buoy, and it was like, and then all of a sudden we were out of the water. So it was like, it was cool to see kind of the difference between year to year. Um, so yeah, I'm not sure, what else I can kind of say about triathlon, but I love it, and I'm constantly learning about, different equipment, different ways of doing it. And so I'm not sure how many races I'll do this year. I'm kind of, kind of the season is kind of from April to about, October or August, September. So, we'll see kind of what races I do this year.
Right, right. Interesting. I'm definitely curious as far as the three aspects of a triathlon. What would you say is the most challenging?
Um, for me, it's definitely the run. Um, I am not very strong in the run. I'm very slow. Uh, Out of the three, it's my least favorite. And so, I'm very strong in the swim, I'm very strong in the bike, and then I get to the run and it's like, oh goodness. What have I got myself into? Um, but I would say guiding wise, I'm much more comfortable on the bike and the run. I'm just more experienced with that. Coming from the swim team background, all of my swimming has been in the pool. So when they said, "Oh, you have to do open water swimming on a tether," it's like I don't know how I feel about this. And I would definitely say over the last couple years, I've gotten definitely more comfortable with it, but it's still something, that's doesn't come as easily to me. And I should kind of describe the way that we're swimming side by side. Each of us has you can either have a waist tether or a kind of a tether that goes kind of around your upper leg, and then there's kind of a bungee in between us. So it's kind of what I learned from going to one of the camps was it's a lot of subtle movements where I would feel something on the tether and want to make these huge corrections. So it was a lot of like, bumping into the guide and, kind of zigzagging back and forth. And, it's more kind of, you feel something through the tether and then, you make kind of a subtle correction, one way or the other. So, um, and then, if it's a course where we have to go around buoys. It depends on what guide I have. Sometimes we can swim around the buoys, and then other times um, we'll stop and then kind of tread water and then, go around the buoy and then start swimming again. So,
Hmm.
yeah, I would say that's kind of the more challenging guiding wise, for me at least.
Sure, sure. Interesting. And speaking of guides, I'm also curious just when it comes to running or swimming or the guides, hey, even in skiing that you've had, what would you say are kind of the key components to making, to having an effective guide, relationship with your guide?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's someone who has a background in the sport themselves. So, they're experienced in, say, running or biking. And then someone who's really willing to learn, um, and has kind of an open mindset because for me too, I'm learning and I'm learning how to teach people how to be guides. And so, um, you know, I will just try things out and, um, you know, first, for example, like with running, I first started out on hand tether. Um, and I've just had, family members and friends that I've, used, kind of the United in Stride training video, and, I'll send that to them and then we'll go out and, yeah, it's kind of a lot of trial and error. So I'd say, yeah, someone who's, you know, first willing to learn how to guide and then being willing to be flexible, um, and adapt and try things out, kind of as we go along. Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, interesting insight. And I feel like it kind of goes back to any kind of relationship, just communication and, like you said, kind of
Hmm.
trial and error and making sure you're both on the same page as much as you can be.
Yes. Yeah, and yeah, it's really uh kind of a two-way street. I'm knowledgeable in the sports and what works best for me, and I'm teaching that to the guide, but then the guide is, also, you know, telling me what works best for them. And, yeah, it's a lot of communication, um, especially in things like, downhill or cross-country skiing. It's really having that open dialogue with the guide. Um, kind of as you go along.
Absolutely. Yep. And just being honest with each other and yeah, just
Mm-hmm.
making sure you're, like I said, on the same page and understand each
Correct.
other's needs and everything. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. So as far as guide dogs, so I understand you do have a beautiful pup from Guide Dogs for the Blind, right?
Yes, I do. Yep. His name is Spinoza. He
Hmm.
will be 9 in a couple months. And he's a golden retriever lab cross. Um, he is 75% golden retriever, 1/4 lab. He is great. He has done, kind of thinking back over the years, we celebrated 7 years together in December, and of all the places he's gone and all the things he's done, it's kind of like, wow, so he's pretty much up for anything, um,
Yo.
except loud boats in the ocean.
Yo.
He did not like that. So, but yeah, he's my second guide, from Guide Dogs for the Blind. Their boring Oregon campus is about an hour and a half from where I live. So it just made sense, um, to go there. And yeah, that's
Nice. Yeah.
kind of what I can say about him.
Sure. Yeah. I was going to ask a little more just about how he's kind of fit into your athletic endeavors and travels, and do you pretty much take him everywhere you've gone for different events, or?
Yeah, it really depends. So like, for instance, when we would go up to the mountain for downhill skiing, Mount Hood Meadows was really great with us, because we would be gone from about 6 a.m. in the morning till 3 to 4 p.m. in the afternoon.
Mm,
So, and kind of my whole family would go. So we really couldn't leave him behind, so we worked with them to find kind of a space that he could be, and so I would take a crate, um, and leave him in somebody's office, and he's really good that he's very quiet, so you don't even really kind of realize he's there because he doesn't really make a lot of noise. And so they were happy to have him. So for like, that I would take him, ski for light. I've taken him, because they've had, dog walkers that will take them out, at lunchtime. Um, I'm not taking him to Norway with me just because, they don't have dog walkers, and it's just kind of uh, there's a lot of paperwork you kind of have to do to get them over to, kind of, those different countries, which I have done with him,
hmm,
because we've done travel as a family, to, different European countries, and he's gone. Um, for hiking, he will come. He loves to hike, and he's a very good, hike. Hiking with a dog is just, I love it versus doing it with the cane.
yeah.
Um, and tandem biking, he does not come. Well, I guess I should say if there's somebody at an event that can watch him while I'm biking. So, like, for instance, the Dare to Try camp, they usually have volunteers that will, watch him because he is not a water dog, so he would not come swimming, and biking, so, that's usually, um, there's somebody, to watch him. But if I can't take him somewhere, I usually, have family members, or, I leave him at home in a crate. And he's pretty fine to just, hang out and, sleep.
Yep.
So
Yep.
yeah, where I can, I try and bring him, but in certain situations, it's just not kind of feasible to bring him. So
Exactly, no doubt.
yeah.
But it sounds like he's a good boy and very adaptable to
Hmm.
whatever you got going on.
Yes, for sure. He's kind of, yeah, go with the flow. Okay, we're gonna do this. Okay, let's do it.
Yep. Yep.
As he gets older, I don't know, as much how he's gonna, put up with that, but we'll see.
Yep.
He still is, so we'll do it as long as he'll allow it. So
Exactly. Yep.
yeah.
So any other hobbies, any other interests that you'd like to mention?
Uh, gosh. A lot of my hobby is, adaptive sports. I love being outdoors. For me, it's, to be able to, live a healthy lifestyle, but also just for my mental health. I just am just in a better mood when I get out and do something. But I'm also a very avid reader, love to read, always have since a young kid. I was very notorious for always having when I could read print, a book in my hand, everywhere we went. And, now it's kind of I'm either doing an audiobook or Braille and love to love music. Kind of before COVID, I was going to a lot of concerts, but not so much these days. Let's see what else. Doing different adventures, and visiting with family and friends. I think that would be kind of some hobbies as well.
Sure. Yep.
Um,
I think you have been involved in ACB, the American Council of the Blind. So
yeah, I've done. I would like to be more involved in ACB, but just with all the things I'm doing and all the kind of volunteer roles that I hold, I just kind of have to budget my time. But I am involved with my local chapter in Portland, and up until December, I was the treasurer. Um, for our chapter, and I try and do ACB community calls when I can. Usually they're when I'm working or you know whatnot, so I usually catch the podcast later. But um, I love to learn about different topics and whatnot. And I did do um, some things with ACB Generation, but it just got kind of overwhelming. So I don't know, maybe at some point I'll come back. But yeah, I've done some things with ACB.
nice. Yeah,
And
because I've been pretty
yeah.
involved in Next Gen for a while myself. So I know I've seen your name, listed here and there.
Yeah. Yep, I've definitely heard your voice, from
Yep.
different aspects, but um yeah, it's just there's only so many hours in a day and in a week.
Right.
And
Sadly, I wish we could
so
have more, but we're
yeah,
limited to what we've
so
got.
yeah, so and I keep learning about things, which is good and bad because, then I get involved and so but yeah, I think, what kind of ACB is doing is really great. And, yeah, I wish I could kind of do more with them. So we'll see, who knows?
For sure. You never know. Cool. Then before we wrap up here, I just wanted to give you the chance to mention any kind of contact info or resources you'd like to recommend, maybe that people can find online about some of the things you've talked about, just anything you'd like to conclude with here.
Yeah, so I'd say if people are interested in Ski for Light, they could go to the website, which is sfl.org. Um, let's see, there's also I mentioned the Northwest Association for Blind Athletes, and I think they're at nwaba.com. I can't remember what their exact address is, but if you just type in um, Northwest Association for Blind Athletes, it'll come up. I would say, contact information, kind of email, phone number. I don't know if that's good for me to give out here or,
Sure, if you
um,
want to at least
you
mention
know,
your email, that's probably safe.
yeah, my email is Lillian Goodman 98 at gmail.com. I am on Facebook under Lillian Goodman and Instagram. And you can search for me, Lillian Goodman. I would say I'm not super active in posting, but if people want to reach out that way, that's too. Um, I'm trying to think of other, resources. There's Dare to Try, and that's TRI, um, based out of Chicago. And they're really, great for kind of, doing the different camps, but also, finding guides. Um, I think it's been mentioned on the podcast before, but United in Stride, I kind of went down that rabbit hole
Yep.
today. Um, and because for me, I'm always looking for guides, um, and kind of, creating that network. Because, you know, I know that guides, they're more than willing to do it, but also at the same time, they have their lives and, their families and responsibilities. So, I try and, um, ask different people to be guides for different things, so that, I'm not constantly asking them. So I think, having any kind of resource, that's out there to try and find guides, is great. And I'm trying to think of anything else. I think that would be kind of the majority of it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
I
can't
did
think
want
of
to
anything
mention,
else.
I'm glad you brought up United in Stride. I think I read recently that they're now getting into like tandem cycling and guides for other activities in addition to running and walking.
Correct. Yes. It's still pretty new, so I haven't found as many results for that, as for running and walking. I kind of was searching on there today before the call, and yeah, it seems the majority are guides are for, running. I did find a result for someone for biking and triathlon, but she's already one of my guides. So
Ah, yep.
um that, I knew was on United in Stride, and so it's like, oh, okay, so but hopefully, as time goes on and more people kind of find out about it, for guides wise, that there'll be more kind of options for guides. But yes, I did, I get their newsletters and I did see about that. So I went in and updated my profile. So, we'll kind of see how that goes.
Nice. Yeah, just really glad to see
Yeah.
so much more, communication out there and just trying to
Hmm.
connect folks within the blind sports and adaptive sports community. That's the goal of this
Hmm.
podcast. I know that's the goal of many organizations
Hmm.
too. So just
Yes.
trying to do my
Yeah.
part.
And I would say too, kind of a challenge, that I face is the guide piece,
Hmm.
for uh whatever sport it is, so having those resources to connect is great. I've been fortunate that I've had friends and family members, that are willing to guide and learn how to guide, but you know sometimes, they're either injured or, not able to guide, and so yeah, being able to find other people, is great. And yeah, so I think, just kind of, yeah, building that network and really, what's been great with all my kind of adventures and things I've done as well is just meeting all these really cool people that have done really, awesome stuff in their lives, and just, connecting with them. I think that's also been something that's been uh really, really great.
Absolutely. Very well said. All right. So, again, we've been chatting with Lillian Goodman here on this episode of Eyes Free Sports. And, Lillian, just want to thank you so much for your time. Really, really enjoyed this conversation and just getting to learn about your story and just all the different things that you've done, especially when it comes to adaptive sports. So, thank you so much for joining us here on Eyes Free Sports.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This has been a great experience, and I've enjoyed really kind of sharing my story and all the things I've kind of been involved in. So yeah, thank you so
Awesome.
much.
Yep. And good luck with your event coming up in Norway here pretty soon.
Thank you. Yeah, yep. It's coming up soon. So
Awesome.
yep.
Alrighty. Thanks again.
Thanks.
To hear more episodes of the Eyes Free Sports podcast and to subscribe, search for Eyes Free Sports on your favorite podcast platform or visit eyesfreesports.com. Be sure to follow the Eyes Free Sports podcast at facebook.com/eyesfreesports and on Twitter at Eyes Free Sports.